Mailbag time. Welcome to the Autzen Audibles podcast. I'm at Prehm and Erik Skopil on the show as always. Yes, it's Monday, which usually means during the football season we open up the mailbag. We had a lot of questions submitted this week. Went through them all. Actually, I should say Erik went through them all, found the good ones, found the interesting ones, and we're gonna break it all down. You guys submitted your questions surrounding Oregon football following the first 2 weeks of the season, looking ahead to the next couple weeks. And there's a lot to talk about, Erik. This Oregon team's running. They're fifth in the country. They're fourth in one of the polls. They're 2-0, and I think people are starting to do the. Not enough people are talking about Oregon. Keep an eye out on what they're doing, and that's going to be reflected, I think, in some of these questions.
Yeah, and I guess I'd also say before we jump in, I think the fact that, and we talked about in the previous show, but just they're saying this without Oregon having played any good competition, and we're still 3 weeks from, if we're being honest and fair, any good competition. It's going to continue. Like the margins are going to continue to be massive. The conversations nationally are going to continue to be massive. The mailbags are going to continue to be kind of a mix of what's going on, like what are we nitpicking until we get to Penn State. So it's fun from our perspective, but gosh, it'll be fun to also see how this team stacks up against some of the better teams they play. But that is not this week. First question from @UOR Matthews. This week we get to see how we respond to a road environment, especially for Dante and some of our younger players. The game will have an unusually early kickoff. Do you foresee any struggles with focus? Will this be our first real adversity? Good question from him here, I thought, just to kind of kick it off. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't really think so. Now, that's mostly opponent related. Now, there are some kind of strange, I guess, secondary kind of things going on here. He's right. Like, it's going to be weird for the body clock, 9 a.m. It's going to be 9 a.m. local time when this game is kicked, right? That's early. That's weird. It's on the road. It's also going to be played in, like, I don't know if you have capacity pulled up in front of you there, Matt, but Northwestern's not playing in its normal football stadium. It's playing in like a secondary track facility, I think. And I want to say it's like not more than 10 or 12,000 people. I was talking to another Big Ten media member at Big Ten Media Day in July about this, and it felt very strange being there, just because it didn't feel like a normal atmosphere. So I bring all this up to say, like, these are good things to remind fans going into the week of, like, yeah, this is not going to feel like a game at Autzen. This is not going to feel like a game, played on the West Coast, because it's not. But I don't necessarily expect issues with focus, or that this is going to present too much adversity. I don't think Northwestern is frankly good enough to cause problems. And Oregon, we saw a lot. Like, let's put it this way. I look back to last year's game with Purdue, and I guess it's a little different because that followed the Ohio State game, and Oregon had already kind of taken some shots and proved it could stand up to it. But remember, that game was 35-0. Oregon won on the road, and we had all these questions. I think it was a Friday game. It was the first time playing kind of in a weird environment, and there weren't any issues. So I'm not really buying that, but it is worth bringing up the fact that, there's kind of weird circumstances here.
They'll be playing at Northwestern Medicine at Ryan Field, or at Martin Stadium, excuse me. Northwestern Medicine Field at Martin Stadium. That's an incredibly long and confusing name.
Mm-hmm.
It was a soccer field, I believe, or outdoor sports and recreation facility on campus at Northwestern. It's the home of the soccer and lacrosse teams. But in 2024, because of Northwestern's construction of their actual football facility, they're playing temporary games here for the football side of things. And capacity prior to the move was 2,000 people, and now for football games it's 12,023. I would really want. I guess I'll task you, Erik, maybe.
Try to see the smallest stadium they played.
You love these things. Find, like, what is the next smallest number? Because this is going to be it in terms of modern era Oregon football. The smallest crowd Oregon has played in.
Off the top of the head, I think of the other actual Martin Stadium where the Cougars play, but that's still like 30,000. So
yes,
this will have to be not a on podcast research assignment, but
100%.
For Thursday's preview show, I'll hopefully have an answer. Might have to talk to some SIDs and some Oregon people to get a sense on this one.
But yeah, it's you asked for the capacity. It's 12,000 people. The setup of it actually looks like unbelievable from an aesthetic standpoint. You're right on Lake Michigan. Uh, you're going to have some sweet views. It's unfortunate that uh, this game's going to be played at 11 a.m. and not in the afternoon, kind of like twilight period where you get that vibe. But I'm curious to see like the wind. You're literally right up against Lake Michigan. And is the wind going to be a factor at all? Is it going to be a lot colder than we've seen historically? But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's going to be a ton of distraction in this game, in part because I just don't think Northwestern is any. I don't think they're significantly better than Oklahoma State. And they're on the road. They're a 28.5-point favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Like the odds makers are already saying this is going to be a repeat, in our opinion, potentially of what you just saw last week at home. But now you're going on the road. Maybe I don't envision a bunch of pre-snap penalties. I don't envision crowd noise being just this huge factor. Maybe like if we want to say like struggles, maybe Oregon goes on the road and it's a young team. I don't think this will happen, but it's a young team and they take their opponent lightly and they play sloppy. They kind of play with their food a little bit. Like we've heard that reference a lot. Maybe that happens, but I don't know. I think this team's pretty locked in. I think they're pretty dialed in. I mentioned it before the season, like on the board, I think on the podcast as well, that I kind of get this sense that this team is just the perfect blend of enough veterans to kind of plug some holes, but a lot of your guys are too young and dumb to know really how good they are. And so, guys, we got to go. It's week 3. We got to show up. We got to be ready to go. We got to be locked in here. Like, I don't want to lose my spot because I'm a sophomore or I'm a freshman. Like, I shouldn't be in this position. I got to be dialed in. Where maybe the veteran, the team loaded with vets knows, hey, we're good. This team's not going to be very good. We can maybe take it easy a little bit. This team's going to be ready to go. I don't get that sense with this group.
So we got loud thunderstorms above here. I don't know if people heard that one. Well, I was just looking back at like past road games where things didn't quite go to plan, I guess I'd say. Under Dan, I mean, obviously you go back to the first season. I kind of throw that out because that was just a weird year. They started it in Atlanta against Georgia. We were all there. Remember that game? The game in Pullman did not go to plan. That was a game they should not have won. They were very fortunate to come back there. I go back to last year, the very first game on the road outside of the state of Oregon. Remember they played Oregon State. They came off the bye, went to UCLA. Another like kind of stilted environment. I hate to put it that way because obviously there's like 10 times as many fan capacity at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, but maybe not that many more than 12,000 people show up for those games. To be totally honest, so maybe kind of similar. That was a game where it was Oregon kind of, like you said earlier, kind of played with its food. Dylan had a couple bad reads, threw a couple interceptions. It was still 28-3 with 2 minutes to go in the first half. It was 28-10 at half because UCLA scored right in the closing seconds. So like maybe it's close by the standard of this team. Maybe it's not as lopsided as the last couple of weeks, but I would honestly think this is probably going to be a game that's closely covered by half, just based upon what we've seen previously. And we'll get into some of the Northwestern stuff later in the week, but injury concerns there with some key players and already not a very talented team to begin with. So good start from UR Matthews. We'll jump over here to the second question from at Shepherd DA 11300. Is there a concern on either side of the ball that Oregon hasn't played anyone at the pulse, either offensively or defensively? I don't think there's a concern. I think that's true, though. Like, I don't think Oregon has played a team that, quote unquote, has a pulse, at least not by their standards. Like, when have they been challenged? I thought that was something that, again, I don't think it's a concern, but I'd anticipated and kind of expected that Oklahoma State was going to put up a little bit more of a fight, at least when they were on defense. I kind of figured with the new quarterback and some reshuffling of the deck on the offensive line for the Cowboys, that wasn't going to go great. But I thought they'd provide some level of a difficulty. And having just gone back and kind of rewatched the game last night for a second time, the Ducks got. I mean, Dante would have led touchdown drives every time if not for that third drive. There was the holding penalty on Jamari Johnson. Fourth down, they go for it. Looked like at the top of the route there was a little contact. Could have easily been something there. It wasn't. It just like they were so close to just being literally almost perfect. So you'd like to see a little more adversity. Unfortunately, like they're not going to get it this upcoming week. And based on how the Beavers are playing, they're not 0-2. I don't think they're getting it there. So this might be a storyline we're talking about going into Penn State, but ultimately, like, no, I'm not. That doesn't really concern me right now.
Yeah, I would maybe. We're nitpicking like that. That's what I want to say first and foremost. Maybe seeing how Oregon's receivers stack up against some elite competition at the cornerback spot. Maybe also like seeing how Oregon's secondary fares against an elite QB. I don't think Flores was even remotely dangerous or a threat to Oregon. I don't think Montana State.
He was a liability. He was a liability for them.
Yes. I don't think Montana State's quarterback was anything of a threat through the air. So I think it's easy to play press coverage and be really aggressive and lock up your man on defense when you know, even in a one-on-one situation, their quarterback's going to look at this and be like, I'm not confident right before I make this throw. And so maybe we're looking for that. Maybe finding what a competent quarterback or a better than average quarterback could do. But even then, I don't know. Like, I don't think this team has a lot of weaknesses. Maybe the offensive line is going to get thin if we continue to see, some guys with injuries. We know Harkey's dealing with something that's maybe at least minor. Pregnon, both these guys played after injuries. Emmanuel Pregnon, Harkey, they both suffered injuries week 1, week 2 during the games. They both came back or were available to come back, but it's already 2 weeks and you're dealing with maybe a nagging injury. Kawika Rogers, maybe being another one.
Yeah.
Maybe just like again, nitpicking of maybe just the depth of this unit. If a major injury happens, what happens there? I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of concerns though.
No, and I'll just I did a story on Sunday afternoon, just kind of recapping where Oregon stands offensively on the national level. Like they're the lowest they rank in basically anything is 24th, and that's in pass yards per game, and that's just because they haven't needed to throw the ball. Like they're top 10 in all the team rush stats. They're top 10 in all the pass efficiency stats. They're top 10 in scoring offense, total touchdown. They're first in the country in total touchdowns scored. Someone asked earlier about like kind of red zone efficiency. Well, they've scored 100% of the time. They've scored touchdowns in 12 of 13 trips. So those are obviously top 10 categories. I guess the only one here that is, I just scrolling through here again, that is a problem is time of possession. 83rd. Oklahoma State beat them in time of possession. Should we be worried? I still remember, I'm sure you remember this, Matt, like some reporter asking Chip Kelly going into a game with Stanford if time of possession concerned him, and Chip kind of reading him the riot act. No, I don't really find much of anything. I guess fourth down conversions, they didn't get one last game. Like, is that concerning? No, not really. I mean, I really struggle to find anything that's concerning at the moment here. And I do think, like, back to his question, just kind of broadly on the season. Yeah, like you probably would have liked for one of these first 4 teams to be a somewhat of a challenge for you to set you up against Penn State, but you're not going to see that clearly. Oklahoma State on paper, when this game was, if we looked at this a year and a half ago, we would have said that game, that's the one that's going to cause some problems potentially. That's the one that you're going to learn some things. That might ultimately be the most lopsided. I think it will be. It's going to be hard to beat a team by more than 69-3. So, yeah, no, I don't think I have major concerns, but maybe you'd like to have seen a little better opponent here. But that's how the schedule played out, and that's unfortunately where things are at.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we dive into the second half of the show, we'll have a couple more questions surrounding Oregon football. Welcome back to the Autzen Audibles podcast. Couple questions in, couple more to go.
Yeah, we'll go here. This was actually a question I saw right before we started. So good job getting this in kind of right under the gun here from @39 Alaska 39. That guy really likes that number. After 2 weeks, is it more likely Mekhi Hughes just isn't a good / as elite as Jayden Limar and Noah Whittington, or is he struggling with the playbook responsibilities within Stein's offense? #Autzen Audibles. I think it could be a combination. I mean, I thought one of the things, and Matt and I were messaging about this on the broadcast, is Gary was talking about how, maybe it was Brad, I can't remember. One of the broadcasters mentioned that, when they brought in Mekhi, they had expected that he'd have a little bigger role, but they didn't realize how good their young guys were. So yeah, I think some of it is he's being challenged from a talent perspective. That's now been kind of stated, at least second or third hand from Will. And then we did hear Will and Dan both at least acknowledge, like, it was hard for him to kind of get comfortable with the plays. So I think it's all of that. I also will say, like, he did basically come, I would say he was really their fourth back that entered for like actual responsibilities. He was in the field before Jordan Davison. And Dier got in there for the touchdown, but that was kind of in a specialty package play as opposed to, carrying the ball and, as a primary running back. And Dier really didn't play a whole lot. It was kind of used, both of those guys kind of saw a little bit lesser snap count. So it really feels like it's Noah, Jayden, and Jay, and then Mekhi right now in the pecking order as just like a primary runner. And that also is what the snap counts say. Right now, he's actually tied with Jayden Limar with 27 snaps. That's second behind Noah Whittington, has 34. I'll just read out the rest of these because these are always fun to talk about. Jay Harris has 18. Dier Hill has 16. Jordan Davison has 14. Dink Riggs has 12. And then if you look at the season stats, he's actually carried it the second most amount of times, right? Whittington has 14. He has 10. Limar has 9. Davison has 9. Hill has 6. And Harris is 8. So there's kind of the pecking order there as well. Now, the interesting thing is if you look at the rush efficiency stats here, he has basically been the least effective running back. Now, some of these have come in where he's not working with the first team offense, just as a caveat. But you look at it, like Limar and Whittington are both near the top of the national leaderboard in yards per carry. They've had, small sample size of carries, but big explosive plays, both over 11 yards per carry. Dier Hill right behind him, also over 11 yards. And then you look at it, like Jay Harris, Jordan Davison, Mekhi Hughes are all under 4 yards per carry. So he's not really necessarily like had the big moments. He's also like made some nice plays in space, like run through some guys. That part's been encouraging. But yeah, I kind of lean that he still has some work to do here. But last week at least was a little bit of an uptick in terms of his role, it felt like, which was encouraging, I think. And ultimately, Matt, I think we both agree he's going to be someone that's featured, I think, the further we get into the year a little bit more.
I agree. I think he's going to be a guy towards the end of the year, middle of the year, will be in the regular rotation, the top third, top half of the rotation that Oregon uses at the running back spot. But I'm going to pose a question, or maybe a statement. Let's just assume Jayden Limar continues to be as effective as he is. Let's just assume that Dier Hill continues to carve out the impact that he's providing for Oregon. Jordan Davidson continues to be kind of their goal line, very short yardage situation guy. If Mekhi Hughes is your 5th or 6th running back on the roster and the guys above him continue to excel at, above, or right around the level that they're operating at right now, it's cold, but who cares? Like,
sure. Yeah. Right.
Like, great. Your 6th running back is a potential NFL dude, but that means that guys 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 are in the same boat, and the offense is humming. The offense is converting. Certainly, you want to see Mekhi Hughes show up and perform at a high level. I mean, he took a risk to leave Tulane. I'm sure he had plenty of other options that were high-profile schools. Kind of Ohio State was kind of a school that was kind of linked to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be unfortunate for Mekhi Hughes that if he shows up here and he's just ineffective. But if Oregon is operating and they're one of the best teams in the country and Mekhi Hughes isn't part of the game plan, that's competition. He showed up and was beat out. And I'm changing my tune. I thought week 1 it was kind of a, hey, maybe he's a little bit behind in terms of understanding the plays and knowing where to go and whatnot. But more importantly, we've got bigger fish to fry. Let's not use his wear and tear in a meaningful game. But a second straight week, and he comes in and he's playing in like the late third, early fourth quarter at running back. Like, if they had concerns of wear and tear, instead of legitimately just saying he's our 5th best running back right now, like, he wouldn't have been in the game because of the blowout. They wouldn't have put him in that unnecessary, carries for the wear and tear. I think he's legitimately the 5th or 6th running back right now on the roster.
I think, well, this is how I kind of see it right now. And again, it's so hard to parse through this in a game like that where the rotations don't make sense. He did get in earlier in this game. We should know earlier, kind of early second quarter was his first run. Like I said, he was I feel like it's what I'm starting to see is this Dier and Jordan are kind of going to be specialists in terms of Dier is going to be used like he was in the last game in motion. He'll come out of the backfield quite a bit, but he's still a home run hitter. Let's get him in space. Let's let him be a dynamic weapon we can use and get creative with. Jordan Davison is a short yardage goal line guy. And then Jaden and Noah are entrenched as 1 and 2 on the depth chart in my mind. Noah ahead of Jaden. And we should give Jaden some flowers here because he was awesome in that game. I know we're talking about this in the press box, and I even wrote about it in my my column here. But like this is a guy who I think fans have kind of overlooked and kind of turned their nose up at, and for whatever reason haven't been big fans of at times. He had some of the best runs of the day on Saturday, and that's back-to-back weeks. He's been really impressive in space and explosiveness, and I think he's a better athlete than people want to give him credit for, while also showing some power. I know he got help on the touchdown there, but his leg turn was super impressive. So let's just put those guys aside as the 1 and 2 primary backs, and then let's call Jordan and Dier kind of the specialists. I think it's Mekhi and Jay Harris battling to be kind of your number 3 primary back. And the reality is, Matt, you get into big games, you don't play that many guys in that kind of a role. And that's kind of where I'm at. I think in games like this, like I wouldn't be surprised if Northwestern, Oregon State, he still carries the ball a decent amount. He's still near the top of the snap count. But if he's not able to wiggle his way above Jay and maybe even challenge Jaden, you might get into a game like Penn State where he's just completely squeezed out of the rotation. Like that's going to be telling for me. That's going to be the first sign of where he really belongs, is in a game that's competitive and against good competition. Is he still this far down the pecking order? And if that's the case, maybe these things change throughout the season. Knock on wood, you may deal with injuries. But yeah, I think this is just the reality of where it is. It's a surprise to everybody, especially considering how high profile he was. But I hate that we're on Mekhi Hughes watch every week. But when you bring in such a player with his accolades and his history, people are going to ask the questions. I think this is kind of similar to what we're learning with Jaleel Florence at corner. Right. We got a bit of an answer there on Saturday. He didn't play from scrimmage at all in the opener. People were like, was he hurt? Well, he played 19 snaps on Saturday. It just happened that they were all like in the fourth quarter. So sometimes guys that we think are good players, and obviously different situations, Jaleel coming back from injury, just aren't quite where we thought they'd be in the pecking order. And I think we're kind of dealing with the same situation with Hughes and Florence.
I mean, regardless of the name, it's just, why would you play a guy who's averaging 3.2 yards per carry over a guy that's averaging 11.9?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Hard to argue that.
It's really hard to argue against that. Or if you want to pull like another name, okay, why would you play him over 11.2? Mm-hmm. So you're right. I think Mekhi Hughes and Jay Harris are battling it out for that third running back role, and the winner will probably play a lot more, and the loser will probably see very limited snaps the rest of the season whenever that decision gets made. But I mean, the way Oregon's operating, and I think I tried to ask Dan this question last week. He kind of gave me a non-answer, but I really think like if they can just operate where they're rotating dudes like they've done the last 2 weeks, and it's middle of October and they're still doing it for basically most games, they'll continue to do that. I don't think they're going to settle in on, hey, we really got to get this running back room of 7 down to 4 so that these 4 guys get into a rhythm. Or at receiver, these 7 guys let's kind of pare it down to 4, and the other 3 are kind of left out on the island to fight for the scraps. I think they're going to just continue to rotate everybody. Corners the same thing, safety's the same thing, as long as the games allow them to do that. And the schedule already has, it could be a lot.
I was just going to say, like, and that's the other part here for Mackay. There's plenty of opportunity to prove yourself in game, right? There's been plenty of opportunity to this point in spring practice, off-season workouts, fall camp, to prove yourself there. Obviously, what he's done there isn't enough to be ahead of some of these other guys, but he's got opportunities on Saturdays. The next 2 weeks, probably not against Penn State. Maybe it'll be a case he shows himself so well the next 2 weeks that he is involved in the game plan more against Penn State. But you're right. Like, that's another part. I don't anticipate them ever saying, no, we have to only play 4 running backs. I think the plan will be to play 6 guys regularly. I hate to say it. Riggs is a guy we really like as well. I mean, if we really want to talk about a guy who's getting squeezed out, he's not playing until the fourth quarter. And he is certainly number 7 pretty clearly right now. I mean, everybody else is at least getting first half snaps right now. That's one that also surprises me. I know it's not quite the big name as Mackay, but I thought Dink Riggs was going to be pretty involved. He's running back number 7. I think that just speaks to the depth we're talking about. All right, last question here comes from Kinsland01. How impressed have you been with Bear through 2 games? I know Amari has been raved about, and rightfully so, but I feel like our boy Bear needs some love. Love the pod and go Ducks. Hashtag Autzen Audibles. Yeah, it's funny because I saw a couple posts on the message board and actually on YouTube about how he's been a no-show. I'm not saying he's been anywhere near as impressive as Amari. He's actually outproduced Amari statistically, which would probably surprise people. He has 7 tackles to 6 for Amari. PFF, which take it or leave it. Let me do just a brief rant here. Their run block grades for Oregon this last week need to be adjusted. They are so disrespectful for an offense that had receivers and tight ends that were just destroying guys downfield in that game. And they've got grades in the 60s for those guys. And just a fix it, PFF. There's my soapbox moment. But if you look at where PFF grades Amari and Bear, you'd probably be surprised to find out that actually they think so far, again, take it for a grain of salt. I just said they make mistakes, but Bear has a better PFF grade than Amari right now. He's at 72.4. They have him as a better run defender, a better tackler, and then not quite as good as a pass rusher.
Through run defense is significantly better than Amari Washington's.
I mean, his run defense is the best on the team based upon PFF grades. And again, these are subjective. It's 2 games, small sample size, but he's played 46 snaps. Amari's played 64. Obviously, the pecking order is there. I mean, Tione Gray and Terrence Green are also playing similar snap counts and have Terrence Green at least is right in their range in terms of the PFF scores. But I think that's a good point because it's I think easy to lose track of a defensive tackle and how he's playing, especially when he's not starting currently. So good on Tione Gray for winning that job. But Bear has not been somebody who has played poorly or should be overlooked. Because I've seen a couple of people saying, "Oh, he's a bust. It's not working." I'm going like, he's like fifth on the team in tackles as a defensive tackle, and he's got like the best run defense grade and like the 6th best overall grade for defensive players. So no, maybe it hasn't popped the way some people would like. Like he doesn't have the Amari cut of clips, but it certainly hasn't been like this guy doesn't belong.
One guy was being viewed as a preseason first-round draft pick, and one guy was being viewed as, hey, this is his opportunity to restart his career and get himself back on track to becoming a first-round draft pick. So it's a little unfair to call Bear Alexander a bust because the expectations, at least in my eyes, were different than Amari Washington's. And I think that's reflective of, you look at the snap counts, and Amari Washington, I was pretty surprised by this. The 2nd most snaps of any defender on the team through 2 games. He's been on the field 64 times, and the leader of the clubhouse for Oregon defensively is Mateo at 65. So Amari Washington is basically your most played player on defense, which is statement to his conditioning, his endurance, and his ability to play that many snaps.
Right.
But then after that, the pecking order to the defensive line, it's basically a 3-man rotation. And you could argue this guy could be your number 2 defensive tackle. And you could also probably argue that he could be your 4th defensive tackle. And those guys are Tione Gray, who starts, Bear Alexander, and also Terrence Green. Bear Alexander and 45 snaps, Tione Gray 44 snaps, and then Terrence Green has played in 40 snaps. Essentially, those are your 4 defensive linemen. And what I get, at least like you said, small sample size, it's only 2 games. The scores have kind of also maybe allowed some of this to happen. But what I get the sense is hey, Amari Washington's going to be on the field for probably 2 or 3 out of the 4 snaps per 4 plays, and we're going to just kind of rotate the other 3 guys equally, and we'll just kind of see where that's at. So I look at Bear, and he's doing his job. He's doing a good job, and Oregon's just got 4 guys along the defensive line that are all good. You can't have 2 defensive tackles that just pop on tape at the same time. Like, that's incredibly rare. Mm-hmm. I go back to when this is an old poll, but I go back watch Haloti Ngata and Igor Olshansky like together, 2 guys that had NFL potential.
That's 20 plus years ago now.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
It is.
So a lot of these listeners probably have never even heard of those 2 guys, which is a shame. But both guys NFL dudes, and they didn't like destroy an offensive line together at the same time. They both didn't pop at the same time on tape. A, because of the position they play, and B, it's just almost impossible to have 2 defensive linemen at the same time have huge moments. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, the least of my worry right now is the defensive front. And again, I have basically 0 worries, to be clear right now. I'm like, it's really, there's just like, again, we talked about it after the show. Like, if you come out of Saturday's game going like, man, I wish they had a couple of less procedural penalties, and I wish that kicker could have made a 57-yard kick. Your team's pretty good. But if you are to like measure up the position groups, like, defensive line's been among the most impressive for me. Probably, I think it has been the most impressive on defense. I mean, they are so good on that front, both on the interior and then on the edge. Like, rewatching the game, I know Mateo gets a lot of attention. Tatum was a dog, and he is a really, really high-end football player. I don't think he has the same like NFL draft ceiling, but that's a guy who's absolutely going to play on Sundays, and as soon as maybe next year. So Ducks are very, very fortunate, and it speaks to the depth that they're playing. Like, they played last game 10 guys more than 20 snaps. That's a crazy number of guys to be rotating through, and that feels like pretty sustainable. I think Matthew Johnson was the 10th guy to get over 20. I don't think that's probably something you're going to see every week, but I think they're going to play 9 guys, and it's going to be, like we said, the 4 guys you mentioned on the interior, and then they've got like 5 guys on the edge when you throw in Elijah Rushing and Ashton Porter and Blake Purchase along with Mateo and Tatum that they clearly want to play. And like Ashton Porter, by the way, Matt, we were talking about the pick 6 for Peyton Woodyard. He was applying the pressure. It was Ashton Porter who had a really good game once again. Mm-hmm. So the depth there is super impressive. And like I said, a good question here from A Kingsland 01 to kind of talk some Bear, because I think that's been somebody who maybe hasn't gotten much attention so far. He looks good. He looks as advertised, and this whole defensive line does right now. And then of course we'll get a better sense of how they hold up in a couple of weeks. But I would be surprised if we come out of any of these next 2 games having gripes or concerns about these guys.
That's going to do it for us here on the Autzen Audibles podcast. Thank you for submitting your questions. Thank you for listening to the show. We'll be back later this week. We're looking for a Wednesday special kind of recruiting show, and then we're also going to do our regular season or game preview show on Thursday, and then we'll have our recap show Saturday night, breaking down the game. But until the next one, you've been listening to the Autzen Audibles podcast.
Talk to you later, folks.